Broadcasting live to tape from beautiful Omaha, Nebraska, where on a clear night you can almost see Kevin trying to make friends with people he's got nothing in common with. It's the RutgersKev Show.
Kevin O'Keefe gets the win at Charlotte.
Kevin O'Keefe is going to take his first win and only his third start in the series. Beautiful job for Kevin O'Keefe.
Gonna troll me forever.
Oh my gosh, Sean. Yeah, Sean, take a look at his on his feet there. Very appropriate today. Oh boy.
I'm Matt Malone. I stream Iracing, but when I'm not racing, I'm listening to the RutgersKev Show with your host, RutgersKev.
How does he have 38 viewers?
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the next episode of the RutgersKev Show, episode 13. So I'm calling this the last episode of season 1, as we're going to head into a year of when I've had the rift and when I really, had the idea to start a podcast. So here's the deal. If you're listening to me right now on iTunes, on Stitcher, on Google Play, anywhere that's not YouTube, the way you listen is in danger. And here's why. It's fair to say that I have a pretty well-paying job. It's not a secret that I'm an attorney. So it's not exactly I'm stretched for cash, so I'm not, let me preference this with, I'm not asking for money. I'm not asking to make a profit off of the podcast. Okay. But I think it's fair to say if I've invested money into this podcast, including upgrading my microphone and getting a mic stand and getting pop filters and, really working on it and my time as well. And I don't mind doing it because I actually like doing it, and I think it will help me with public speaking, monotone kind of stuff like that. So, not a problem. I like doing the podcast. The podcast isn't going away. What I didn't realize when I started podcasting was you actually have to pay a hosting fee to host these things. I'm just used to Twitch and YouTube where it just gets uploaded and bang, no problem. But if you want to be on phones, if you want people to listen to you in your car, you got to pay a hosting fee. So when I just break it down to it, I'm like, is it worth it to me to pay a hosting fee? And the answer to that is really no. But I don't want to deprive people the opportunity to, if this is the way that people listen to their podcasts, I know people do. People listen on their way to work. People drive trucks for a living and listen to this thing. I don't want to deprive them of the opportunity. So the minimum amount is $12 a month. At $12 a month, I can upload 3 hours of podcasts a month. Free, I get 2 hours of podcasts a month. Now, each of my episodes are generally around an hour long. So if I get 3 hours a month, I can basically do 3 episodes a month. That's $12 a month. So at $18 a month, I can upload 6 hours a month, which is basically 4 episodes. That'll be perfect. That's the perfect amount. And then at $24 a month. Oh boy, I don't even know my own stretch goals. But then at $24 a month, I think I can record 12 hours a month. I'm actually have to type it in here because I don't even know. Professional broadcaster Kevin O'Keefe. So I don't want to lie to you, Geez, okay. Okay, so the other thing is that okay, yes, I was right. The $12 a month is 3 hours a month. $18 is 6 hours a month, and $24 is 12 hours a month. So I don't want to deprive people the opportunity to listen to the show. So I'm starting a Patreon. So if you go to patreon.com/RutgersKev, I have little goals. And if I reach those goals, I'll be able to upload the episodes. Now, I actually have to cut this off right now because I only get a certain amount of hours per month, and we're going to run into that because coming up is my interview with Richie Hearn, former kart and IRL driver. This is the quality of guests you're getting on this podcast. You're getting real-life racing drivers that come on here to want to talk about iRacing. I've gotten people that compete in world championships. I'm going to get more people that compete in world championships. I've had broadcasters. I've had the top streamers like Matt Malone. I've had Empty Box on the show. I have people that know what they're talking about and know what they're going to listen to. If you like this, if you want this to continue, if you want to keep listening to this, please consider supporting me on Patreon. If you don't support me on Patreon, that's fine. The podcast it will always be free on YouTube. Now it's time for the interview. It's time for the RutgersKev interview, where RutgersKev does an interview. All right, we're here with John Keefe. That's no relation to myself. And Richie Hearn. We're going to talk about some open wheels because, as I discussed previously, we have two new open wheel cars. And John Keefe is one of the leaders of the charge of why we don't have a certain open wheel car. And John Keefe wants to get the kart car in iRacing. And I would assume some other open wheel cars as well, John, right?
Yeah, but the big goal right now, the big push is definitely for a kart chassis.
Now, what's so special about kart?
Well, I mean, in my opinion, and probably a lot of other people's opinion, it was really the pinnacle of open wheel racing. Not only in America, but towards the end of the good years. I mean, it was making Bernie Ecclestone sweat, and that's on record. So, I mean, it was a very big deal. Unfortunately, we as fans, and I'm sure a lot of drivers, were really the real victims in the split that happened, that created the ultimate end of kart. But with all that aside, I mean, it was just a great series. Insane amount of power. Probably the best looking open wheel cars ever. Best sounding. Of course, it's opinion, but it's my opinion. It seems to be a popular opinion. So, yeah, it's. I just think it's time to try and just make this happen. I'm pretty. Not disappointed. I'm kind of shocked that we haven't gotten kart a long time ago in iRacing. So doing everything I can right now, and with the assistance of others, Todd Bettenhausen is in this mix as well. He's actually contacted the owner of a restored 1994 Penske PC23. It's actually the son of the Ilmore Engineering company that built a lot of the IndyCar engines back in that era. And he's more than willing to let iRacing do what they need to do to make it happen. So hopefully something can finally come of this. And if it's not a Penske, then another chassis would be just as welcome. In my view, I think a lot of people would enjoy that car, whichever one we got.
Now, I was a fan of kart, but I've never been like a technical guy. I almost just like to see the cars go around in a circle. So, Richie, as somebody who drove those cars, how do those cars compare to, let's just say, like the first IndyCar that we have? Like, I think it's the 05 IndyCar that we have in iRacing now. What's different about the kart?
I think number one, the horsepower. I mean, we were pushing over 900 horsepower with no traction control and no paddle shifting, basically no electronics. When I first started running, we didn't even have my dash was on the dash, not on the steering wheel. All I had was a radio button. So it was a little more raw. You can still do all the setup stuff and everything, but it was more about, you and your engineer, working it out instead of just going back to the computer and just letting the computer figure it out. So I think a lot of it's just the horsepower itself and just the balance, the downforce levels. We still had the tunnels. So, you could still run really close to people and that's what made the racing great. I think that, I think people would love it if it was on there. It'd be a real raw, fast car. And I think you can make it very drivable. It wouldn't, like the Formula One car is really hard to drive. I think this would be very drivable and it'd be great. I'm all about it.
Now, a lot of kart back in the day was street courses, and we don't really have a lot of that in iRacing. So how do you think a kart car would adapt to the more modern racetracks that we have now, Richie?
Well, I mean, go against that a little bit because we still ran Mid Ohio. We still ran Road America. We ran, regular. We had a real mix of stuff. Now, obviously, I guess we got Detroit on there, which is cool. But we ran Australia, we ran Long Beach, we ran Toronto, Vancouver. Those aren't on there as well, but it would be fine at the tracks we have on there now. And I'd like to see it run at like Road Atlanta. That's one place I never got a chance to run in real life. I think it'd be a great car for that. And I think overall the car would just be a lot of fun to drive. And there is a huge fan base from that era, because I think a lot of people that are on the service are, old enough like us that were fans back then that would really appreciate that car.
Yes, absolutely.
So, but what iRacing does, I mean, they're not really catering to the Americans as much as the Europeans don't like to think. So I could see like a kart series racing at like the Nürburgring GP course or Monza. You think they're suited to those type of courses as well?
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's no different than coming out with the Renault 3.5. It's faster than that car, and it'd be fine at any of those tracks. I mean, I think it would be very adaptable for anything. Obviously, it ran on the ovals too, so I think you could run it on any track on that service. You run it we used to test at Sebring nonstop, so you could run there, and you could run it at any place. Why not?
VIR. That'd be the very first track I load if we ever get it.
But
I
John,
mean, that's the beauty about the service, right? We can fantasize about, we can run this car on that track and this car on that track, even though it never happened. Doesn't mean it wouldn't have been a fun race.
That's right.
But John, are you saying, did you hint that maybe there's the ability for them to get the actual car to scan it?
Yeah, the owner he's responded to emails. He's willing to to be in touch with iRacing and see what they need. He's over in the UK. So, if it's a matter of, scanning it, and I would imagine they probably, would have someone drive it with, loaded with sensors. I'm sure that's part of what they do. So he seems completely open. He has a love for that particular car, and he absolutely loves the idea. So, I mean, we have a '94 Penske pretty much, ready to be worked on to make it happen if iRacing is interested in doing it.
Now you're a member of the Camel series, yes, and I know you're big on that. It's actually in your forums signature, and all those people that race Camel just try to get the word out about how much fun it is. But the Camel cars, and I think it shows how much love iRacing put into those cars. Just look at the intro video. They hyped it up. They hyped it up for a couple of days. They had a big announcement, and the intro video was very well done with interviews and all that stuff. I mean, the love there was obvious. So I don't think it's one of those iRacing doesn't want historic cars or classic cars. But it could be a matter of, why are we going to spend all this money if no one's going to actually drive it? It's almost like if the car is difficult to drive, people don't drive it. And I really think that's the issue with Camel. It's really, you can't just hop in the car and go. I've only driven the Nissan. I've not driven the Audi, but of course, from everything I've heard, it's hard. And of course, that turbo lag in the Audi is something you got to get used to. So it's a tough car, but it seems fun. I would actually race it more often, but you guys, the main broadcasted races early on Saturdays, is tough for me to get away from the family to do that. But what's your thoughts on that, John, about the participation and perhaps maybe the profit motivation about why we don't have these cars?
Yeah, I mean, as far as the profit motive behind it, I mean, we all know. I mean, there's people that buy everything just to be part of like the 100% ownership club. So I don't think they would really make any less on it by bringing it in. But obviously, I don't know the financial, the financial aspect of it. I don't know what it costs them to create a car. And I don't know like what their profit margin is on what they, what are they, $14.95 or $12.95 full price. So I mean, that aside, I mean, Camel, like you were saying, I mean, it's kind of proof in the pudding that Lotus 79 and 49, maybe not the most popular series in the service, but by far, I mean, hands down, I think the guys that run in those series consistently, they're the most rewarding cars, and I think that kind of goes back to something Richie was saying, like the rawness of slightly older machinery. It's a big draw to those of us that are into the older cars. I mean, that for me, absolutely. The Nissan is the most difficult car to drive. It's currently the most powerful car that we have in the service. I think the LMP ones, when you combine the hybrid with the regular engine, diesel or the gas, depending on which one, they have a higher horsepower number, but it's obviously nothing like the delivery of a turbocharged car from the 80s. So the difficulty level, sure, it absolutely, none of these cars are the type of cars that you would just buy and then just jump into a race. Even with maybe a little bit of practice, it's just not feasible, and then that frustrates people, and then they just kind of say, okay, enough with this, and they go off into another direction. But the longer they're around the service, I mean, you can't deny that, the DP isn't the most exciting car to drive. The LMP ones are fun, but they're so recoverable that it's very hard to actually screw up when you compare it to, say, the Nissan or the Lotus 49. I mean, that car, for me personally, it's just impossible. But I respect the people that can do it. If we ended up with kart, I think people would be a little bit surprised maybe with not just its early popularity, but I think it really would be a car that a lot of people would probably run. Whether it turned into, say, like a Lotus 79 or a Camel GT scenario where it kind of is run by a community or not. I mean, that's probably what would happen after, a year or so. But I think just that feeling of speed, if you're immersed in the sim to a point where, you like with VR and, Goodwheel, stuff like that, where where you're really wrestling this thing around. I mean, I just think it would be one of those cars that they may launch with low expectations, but would probably end up exceeding their expectations. That's my thought on it.
Well, there's
Can I say a couple things on that?
I'm just going to throw to you, Richie. There's a reason why the GT3 is the most popular car, the GTE rather, because it's easy to drive, right? Because I mean, people just don't. The masses don't have, for lack of a better word, the skill to pilot these cars. So, and the GTE, they got the traction control. It's got the tons of grip. But I will tell you, the most satisfaction I probably have ever gotten from a car is when I drove the Nissan in the majors, because I'd practice and I couldn't even leave the pits. And by the time I really, really worked on it, I was one of the fastest cars in the race, And so there is something to be said about having a difficult to drive car. Richie, you were going to say something?
I was just going to say, I mean, there's two groups of people out there. There's people that want to just drive something really easy and have some good racing, and that's why the Skip Barber is so popular. That car is awful to drive, but it's very popular, and it is fun to race because it's not that hard. But there's also the people that want to have that thrill of speed. I mean, you drive the World of Outlaws car, the 410. That thing is awesome. It's so hard, but man, you really get the thrill of speed. And I really think that if it came out, they'd be really popular. It might take somebody like the Lionheart guys or something like that to start their own series, but I think you would have a healthy group of people that would want to run it. And I can't believe it would cost that much to model that car. I mean, it can't cost any more than what they did with the Formula 3 car. And you wouldn't get, I don't know. I don't know why they don't do it. But I think it definitely would be very popular.
Now, what about just the fact we just have way too many cars already, especially on the roadside? We're just so spread out thin. I can't even see a spot on the weekend where carts could even run. I mean, you got to squeeze in Camel at 8 in the morning, God knows when. I just, we're already spread so thin on iRacing. Part of the charm, I guess, of bringing in these new cars is try to get new members. So, do you think CART would bring in new members, John?
I mean, honestly, I think it's possible. But iRacing, I mean, sim racing, I mean, we're a niche group. There's no really other way to look at that. You look at guys that do R Factor or, I think you were mentioning Assetto Corsa, Project Cars, stuff like that. Those sims have CART. And if you can actually race other people in the realistic environment that we have in iRacing, I think you probably could pull some of those kind of people that go to these other sims. I mean, I have R Factor only because it has the 1998 CART season. I would have never spent the money on R Factor if it didn't have CART. So, how many of me are out there? I don't know. But, I'm 39. I grew up watching CART. My first Indy 500 was 1991. I was 11. It blew my mind. It changed my life, honestly. And that's why, I'm so passionate about trying to get one of these cars here, because I'm pretty confident that there's other people out there, other race fans that they would just die for the chance to pilot one of those things. I mean, realistically, would we see a big, influx of new members because of CART? Probably not. I don't think they've ever released a car that's actually done that. It's I don't know if there's any, numbers that can be, looked into on a scenario like that. But I mean, I would definitely say it's possible. Some, the R Factor servers, the very little that I, play around with it, you'll see a CART session up every once in a while. So, I mean, there are people out there that are interested in it. If you bring it to iRacing where you could just log in and race other people, it's very possible. You can draw some, other title crowd types in if they're not already here.
So so part of the discussion, you had a forum post about CART, and then it kind of at the same time there was a discussion about having a separate license for open wheels, kind of to give members a ladder system, started to Skip Barber and go up. So I kind of wanted to get Richie's thoughts on that. As somebody who, Richie, I just know you from major series, and I know you like to hop around from car to car as opposed to focusing on one car. So how do you feel about having separate licenses and therefore separate iRating for open wheel cars versus tin top cars? And then after that, I have some points on the iRating system in general. But Richie, what would your opinion be on having a separate license on the roadside between open wheel and tin top?
Yeah, I think it would be really good to do that in the sense that I think the racing would be better overall. I mean, the skill level to drive, the NASCAR around a track, or the tin tops, whatever you want to call it, to an open wheel is totally different. So obviously you can't really have contact in an open wheel car, and you can in a tin top or closed wheel car. And I think sometimes those lines get blurred a little bit, and people might do really good in a tin top, and then they go jump in an open wheel car, and then they just cause havoc, and vice versa. So I think it would be great to see like a structured ladder system. Like you go from Skip Barber to maybe the Formula 3 car, or even the Mazda, whatever you want to call it, to here today, whatever it is, however you want to structure it. And I think it would actually make the racing better overall. People would complain less, although that's impossible. And I think it would be good. I would be all for it. I mean, it's no different than we have a different license for rallycross and things like that. So why not?
Right. So you think that the discipline between the cars are different? Like, I think if you're fast in something on the road, you'll be fast in everything. But maybe if you're fast in oval, you wouldn't be fast in rallycross. So do you think the discipline of open wheel would be different than the sports car driver?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, it fast is one thing, but racing is different, right? So, you go drive, the stock car at Indy and race with somebody there on that track, and then you go race the Indy 500. It's a totally different animal. Things are happening much quicker. Your margin for error is much smaller, and if you're not used to doing that, and then you end up wadding a bunch of people up either side, and it's the basic skill set is the same, but the racing craft is different, if that makes sense.
Now, John, what about having a separate rating system, like just for Camel? So you don't have people in the top split of your races that have never driven the car before or anything like that. Do you think maybe there should be a historics license or anything like that?
I tend to sway more towards like the IR per car side of the argument, I guess. As far as a classic license, I've never really given that much thought. I don't think it's a bad idea. But then again, I mean, maybe ultimately the best solution would be I-rating per series, so that, if you drive every Camel race and then you like to play around with the LMP1, it doesn't, you don't rack up all the I-rating in Camel and then go over and, be number 2 on a 30 car grid in LMP1 where you're going against guys that's all they do. So, maybe per series would make sense. And I mean, that kind of plays into, per car, because obviously the series would have, being a mixed series with Camel, you'd have the Audi and the Nissan. So maybe you don't necessarily split the I rating from those two cars in the one series. That's probably something that could work. I mean, they've done it for dirt, road, and oval. So, there's no reason why they couldn't implement maybe a better system. I don't know if that's the right way to put it, but more of just a better reflection of the guy in the car type of system.
And, I've been saying that what iRacing needs, again, is a reason to grind. These MMOs, they keep their players paying their subscription fee every month because they give them new things to grind, whether it's, in World of Warcraft, so it's a new dungeon that you've got to go and kill all the bosses again, or the strategy, or in a card game like Hearthstone, you've got to, they like reset the ladder every 30 days. So yeah, if you're rank 1, you go down to rank 5, when if you're rank 15, you go down to 20, but it gives you, so the top guys still race with the top guys, so it gives you a reason to grind again. And I can see if they expanded the license system, it would actually increase participation, because people would have a reason to race open wheel or have a reason to race Camel because they want their numbers to be higher.
Yeah, and they wouldn't be afraid of, joining Camel for a week or two and losing all of their I rating from the series that they normally run in. It would be in an IR sense, it would be taking less risk to go try more things, and that could certainly open the door for more participation. So it's, all good ideas, honestly.
Well, the I-rating system is just flawed. I mean, I'm going to be proof in the pudding at the end of this season. I'm going to race only GT3s at 10 o'clock Central. So that race is not going to split. I'm going to be with the super fast Aussies and then like nobody. So I'm going to be like car 5 or 6 every race. I'm going to finish 5 or 6 every race. I'm just going to farm iRating from these people with 1,500 iRatings. And my iRating is going to be like 3,200 at the end of this year when I'm a 2,500 driver. And then I'll be in top splits of weekend races where I have no business being there. Matt Malone streamed today, and he decided to focus today's stream on the Roval. And it worked out. He had a lot of viewers, and iRacing even tweeted about it to, if you want to check out the Roval, view his stream. But because he's in the MX-5, which is his best car, and he's at Charlotte Road Course, which is his best track, sure, it's changed with the Roval, but that's his best track. I think he gained 1,200 iRating today in just farming that in week 13 because it's 10-lap races every 30 minutes. So... not to, and again, that's not a negative on Matt. If Matt wasn't a streamer, he'd have easily a 5K road. But, should his iRating go up 1,200 points because he found one car and one track that suits his style? It's like, it doesn't seem right. Richie, as someone who hops around from car to car, do you ever find like your iRating is too low or too high based on the discipline you're driving?
Oh, all the time. My rating's right around, I think it's 2,300 or something like that, I don't know. I don't do a lot of official races, so it's been stuck there for a long time, but, I totally agree with John and like just doing it. It should be per car. Cause there's plenty of times like right now I could just jump in the Formula 3 car right now and go race a race. And I would be in a position probably I shouldn't be in cause I don't know crap about that car. And I get, I kind of, sometimes I feel like I'm in the way or vice versa. Like you said, I've jumped in races and all of a sudden I'm like faster than I should be because of my iRating or my positioning in the field. And it should be, I think you're 100% right. I think you would give people a reason to grind it out. Like I personally would do it. I would be like, I want to be over 2,000 iRating in every car, and I would spend my time doing it. But there's no reason for me to do that now, right? I just do my thing and end up where I end up.
Don't you think though, if it was iRacing per car, that you would almost wind up with a situation like, okay, let's say it's IR per car, and I'm running the GT3 at 10 o'clock at night, so all the Euros are in bed. And I'm farming these slower guys, and I'm just farming them, right? So now my iRating in the GT3 is much higher than where it should be. You know what I mean? So don't we just run into the same issues there, where people who farm a car are higher than what their natural skill is?
No, because that would only affect you racing those GT3 races. If you went over and raced, the Cadillac or something like that, or even the Miata, the MX-5 car, you'd be back at a normal level unless you've been farming that too. So right now you could just, like what you said, what Matt's doing, not on purpose, but he's farming it out because that's what he likes to do. Now he can take that iRating and go to any road course series, and he's going to be in the top split no matter what. And so, when you run the special events and stuff like that, isn't that what you want, right? You want to be in the top split so you can get on the broadcast. So instead of, being, specialized on that car, you just go farm yourselves out on Skip Barber for a while, get your iRating way up there. And now you're in the top split in the DP car in the Daytona 24 hours. And that's not right.
But can't you see that in the reverse? Like, you have the Europeans racing in 3 splits, with really tough fields, really high strength of fields. And then you got a guy like me who can race at night against 15 car grids. And if I just grind it out and put more time in, I could have a higher iRating than them, and therefore be in the top split of, say, like Spa 24 or the Nürburgring 24 in the GT3 cars. So I'm not sure if IR per car solves the problem.
No, and you're right. I mean, there's always going to be an issue. You know what fixes that problem?
More people.
Do it by qualifying.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Just qualify and you get in the top split if you're fast enough or not. I mean, that'll make you do some practice.
Well, that may also spread the teams out a little bit. I mean, if you have all 4 top drivers in the same team, great. But now you can put each driver on one team. Now you have 4 cars on the grid.
Well, there's all, yeah. I mean, you're right. I mean, there's no perfect system, but I think IRR per car, or even like a group of cars, maybe do like GT3, open wheel, NASCAR, whatever, however you want to do it. I mean, you can just group them up a little bit and it'll make it a little fair. There's always going to be people who are going to try to cheat the system, but not cheat. It's not cheating. It's just,
game the system.
Advantage.
Take advantage.
They're gaming the system.
I'm a perfect example. Like if I went and jumped, I would love to do one of the Camel Series, but I work a lot of Saturdays, so I can't. But if I jumped in there, there's a good chance I might get into the pro split. I don't really have that much time in those cars. I'm not really that good. And so I probably shouldn't be there, but I would. If I wanted to, I could go race Miatas for a while and get my I rating up to over 3,000 and then go do that. And do I belong there? Probably not. But there's always going to be a way. But to your point, Kevin, is, it would make people grind it out a little bit more. I think it would make some of the other series that are kind of dead a little more popular. But there's no perfect system.
Yeah, and it would give like the HPD, like maybe people don't run the HPD, but if there's a little number there that says, hey, your HPD is 1500, and then it's a psychological effect. If people are fast and they see a low number in a car, then they're going to go, F that, I'm faster than that. So they're going to hop in the car. That's going to increase participation, which is going to make the Le Mans series better, et cetera, et cetera.
No, you're absolutely right. And really, the high I rating is really more of an ego thing than really how good you are. Because, like, I think I don't even know. I do almost all host or league racing, so my I rating never changes. Right. But if I really wanted to brag about it, I would just get my I rating up. It really doesn't mean anything.
Right. Right. Exactly. I've been doing that too with Major Series and Autobahn being my 2 main series in 2018. So my I rating graph is like flat for like almost a year, not because I've been flat, because I haven't raced official. But, and then, yeah, so I mean, there's pros and cons. Obviously we've got a really good system in iRacing compared to just a pick up and drive kind of race series that these other sims do. We obviously prefer what we have over Forza. I just, I was curious to see what you thought about the disciplines, and because to me, the cars either have traction control or they don't have traction control, or they have ABS or they don't have ABS. So that's how I, as somebody who's never been in a real car except for Skip Barber School, that's how I judge it.
I prefer the cars that have none of that, because that's just what I grew up on. I didn't grow up on ABS or traction control. Sure, is it easier to drive? Do I like driving the Ferrari GTE car? Of course. It's pretty easy to drive, but I'd rather drive the Lotus 79. I get more enjoyment out of driving the Lotus 79, and I would love to drive the kart car because it does take some more skill. The one thing that really, I don't drive the LMP1 car purely because it's too complicated. I mean, I look at the setup sheet and I'm like, yeah, I'm going to go do something else. And if I don't work on the setup, I'm not going to be fast, even though it's a fun car to drive. So I want something that's a little more simple, and you have to like be fast by just with your feet and your hands more than the setup sheet. And I think the kart cars would bring that out.
Yeah, and who doesn't want to go 247 miles an hour? There's that whole aspect too.
And part of the reasons why the cars don't go that fast anymore is for safety, and we don't have to worry about that in iRacing.
This is actually a really real question I've always wanted to ask Bill. I mean, I've got Richie right here from that era and watching where things are today. In my eyes, it was safer back then when they were going faster. All the catch fence incidents with IndyCar particularly in the IRL era, which, that honestly is just a continuation into where we're at currently. That was never a problem back then, ever. I don't remember ever a catch fence incident in cars going 250 miles an hour down a back straightaway at Indy or around Michigan or Fontana.
Yeah, you separate it out a little bit better. I'll even give you one better. When I first started, we didn't even have spotters. Like, you didn't have somebody on the tower telling you. So I'm all about that. Get rid of the spotters. People say it makes it safer. I think it makes it more dangerous, because now if you're on your own out there, that's why you have to respect where that guy is. You can't tell, somebody's not telling you. So you have to give a little bit more space. And that's what you did. You had a lot more respect, I should say, the faster you went. I mean, I went 250 at Michigan, and, you had a lot of respect for what's going on out there. You couldn't just dive bomb somebody and just hope for the best. And I don't know. It's a weird argument. I don't know if, I don't know. I mean, we did have a lot of people get, crash and stuff, but
yeah,
it's different. It's just a different era. And I wouldn't say the cars definitely weren't safer back then.
Well, no.
Yeah. But,
the racing seems to have been safer back then.
Yeah, it was a little bit more spread out, and people were more watching it for the pure speed. And that now people are want to see like the pack style racing, whether it's an IndyCar or NASCAR. That's what entertainment wants. So the organizers make it happen for the crowd. But then the problem is, what you're just talking about is, car to car contact into the fence, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
So it's just a product of, the gladiator sport. Aren't you entertained? Thing.
Well,
yeah,
I blame that on why the Indy 500 is not as popular as it was in the 70s. I mean, the part of the reason, to me, again, I'm a casual fan. I don't really know about the technological side. I mean, I guess you'd say I'm a hardcore fan based on hours I watch, but I don't know anything about the technical side or anything like that. And I've never been in a car, so I'm a couch sitter. But part of the reason why in the 70s these guys were heroes was because they were brave. I mean, you had to drive it into the corner as deeper than the other guy. You know what I mean? And you had to be brave enough to put the car that deep in the corner. And sometimes it didn't work out for people. And sometimes at the same time, the engineers had to be brave. They had to go, hey, I have a new idea to make the car faster. I'm going to put a wing on it or just something like that, right? And then, but sometimes those parts broke, So, and I think that the fact that the rules package now with them having more grip and they got all the tools and all the, weight jacker in the car and all that stuff has taken away the danger aspect, and therefore has taken away the bravery aspect. If everyone's slowing down at the same spot, what's the difference between a Nigel Mansell or the guy that runs 20th, No,
absolutely. I mean, my first year at Indy in 96 was the last year before they changed all the rules, right? So that year we were doing like 242 into turn one. And damn, you had to be brave to do that, to go flat out. It took me 4 full days of practice before I could go flat out into turn one at that speed. Now, go back a few years but let's say a couple times I spent some time off. I go to Indy. The cars were so easy to drive and really not that fast. And I could go flat out the first time by. It was not that big of a deal. I actually enjoyed this year's Indy 500 more because it was hard. The cars were harder to drive and you could see it.
Yep.
And when somebody made the pass, you could appreciate the ballsiness of that pass.
Yep.
As opposed to 2 years ago when it was just like, oh, we had 150 passes on the track. I don't really give a shit about that. I want to see some commitment and desire and risk. That's what I want to see. That's what makes me a fan. That's why I was a fan of Senna all those years. He's my favorite driver because he was committed and he would take the risk. And, you make it too easy relatively, I should say. It really kind of just takes some of the excitement out of it.
Yeah, the
Okay.
whole
Kevin, I could put you in one of those Indy cars right now. I could take you out to Texas Motor Speedway right now, and I could put you out there, and within like 3 laps, you would be flat out in that car. No problem.
I believe it.
It's not that hard to drive. It's hard to race 3 wide at 230 miles an hour. Okay, that's the hard part. But is that what we're looking for? No, I'm not. I wasn't a fan of that. I did it, but it was intense. But that's, I probably enjoyed racing at Michigan at 245 miles an hour better than that, because you knew the risk you're taking.
All right. Well, this has been a great conversation. I've actually joined the Elite West team, which is Richie's team. So me and Richie are going to have a lot more contact over the next year. So I assume that you'll be on the show again, Richie. May I make that assumption?
Yeah, I love talking about it. I have very strong opinions, and I don't mind talking about it, whether it makes people mad or happy or sad. I don't really care. It's just the way I feel.
Right. So there's a lot of topics that we can discuss. Give a plug for your job now. You're an instructor, right?
Yeah, I work out at the Ron Fellows Corvette School I'm in lovely Pahrump, Nevada, which is an hour outside of Vegas. But I work at a place called Spring Mountain Motorsports Ranch. It's a country club. It's a private country club. It's a pretty awesome place. They got a lake and houses, and they're building 14 miles worth of racetrack soon. And but I work with the Corvette School, so I work out there pretty much every day, and I do a lot of stuff with Corvette at like the Barrett Jacksons. I give rides and stuff like that. So I find myself enjoying more the teaching part of it than the actual driving of the car. I'd rather race than just driving the car. Doesn't really do much for me, but I want to compete. But I do enjoy, and it's a lot of fun. So if anybody comes out there, say hi.
So if you were in Vegas just on a whim, could you like call your place up and book it?
No, it's pretty much, very rare. Everything's booked up 3 or 4 months in advance, sometimes a year in advance. So we're pretty busy, but it doesn't mean they don't get, dropouts or stuff like that. But if you just like, oh, let's go do that, no, because the schools are 2 days long or 3 days long. It's not just a arrive and drive. It's we go through skid pad exercises, and we do classrooms, and we get really technical. We get into like data reading and stuff like that. So it's more than just an experience, and it's an actual school.
All right. And what's the website?
That's a good question.
Well, what's the name of it again?
It's Spring Mountain Motorsports. So I think it's Spring Mountain Motorsports Ranch.com. That's a terrible thing to say, and I don't know the website, but if you just Google Spring Mountain Motorsports Ranch Motorsports, you'd come up, and you can actually find some of my videos up there of me talking to people and giving rides and stuff like that as well on there.
Now, John, I think you're sponsored, aren't you?
No, I'm not sponsored. Part of a team, SimSport News.
Well, yeah, SimSport, right. So, yeah, give a little plug for that.
Absolutely. SimSport News. They're, trying to get the website up and running. And, well, no, the website is up and running. They're just trying to build that. And there was plenty. I don't even know the amount of drivers we have at this point. When I came in, we had, I think, 6 pretty much like full-time drivers. And now, we're probably pushing over 30. So we're going to have several cars in this year's Daytona 24.
Well, thanks for being on the show, both of you. I think we had some good discussion here. I wouldn't mind seeing kart. I would give it a go. I can't wait to see the paint schemes that we get.
Yeah. We wouldn't be able to use any of them if we were going to do broadcasts. But yeah, the classic liveries, they would be pretty cool.
You can use my my Ralph's livery. That's not anything bad, right?
I don't think so. I don't think it's a bad thing.
No.
Okay, thanks for coming on. And that's the end of the interview. Donk. If you like that episode and you want to hear more, patreon.com/RutgersKev. That's patreon.com/RutgersKev. I appreciate all the great feedback I've gotten so far, and I look forward to giving you more iRacing content in the future.
That's the end of my show. Donk.